Well, hi everyone. I see we're already kind of getting a crowd in here, so I shall kick everything off and welcome everybody to the Edge Computing Association. I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I think you're going to have an interesting session. So without further ado. I'm Phil Bliss. For those of you that haven't met me before, I'm a digital pioneer, which means I'm older than most of you, and I have been in the technology space for 20 plus, probably about 30 years, to be honest about it. Just one new feature of the Edge Computing Association. We did launch a careers section about 6 weeks ago, and getting a lot of interest in it. So something else to go to our site for. It's kind of interesting. But let's get down to the topic in hand, which is how to build thriving teams in trying times, which is session 3. And I think I'm sure some of the people have been at the other 2 sessions, and they have been really well attended and lots of interest. Tish is going to give us her presentation. She's founder and president of Global Consulting Group, and is, as you can see, highly qualified to discuss this. And I think, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you to take over, Tish. Or just one thing. If you ask questions during it, I will be sort of collecting them, and wherever possible, get Tish to respond to them live. If we don't get through them all and run out of time, because we are on a time frame, then I'll certainly send out the answers to everybody that attends.
Wonderful. Phil, we're doing critical thinking today, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
So, so here we are, everybody. Thank you very much for joining today. I hope everyone had a very happy Easter long weekend with family. Amazing time for Christians and everybody around the world. And what a wonderful message, being reborn, new beginnings. Hopefully we can create some new beginnings in our world. And one of the ways we do that is through critical thinking. It's going to help us make better decisions. A lot of times, whether we know it or not, our brains are hijacked through bombardment of messages, either consciously or subconsciously. And those bombardments impact our ability to think critically, think logically, and sometimes we do make decisions based purely on emotion. So today, some of the things we will talk about are here. This is an hour presentation. I'm condensing it down to a sort of a shorter, a 20, 25-minute presentation. If anyone is interested in the entire presentation, you can visit my training site at www.tishconlin.com and access the entire training with a professional handout. For an incredibly low cost. I think it's $30 or $34, very, very inexpensive. So this whole training talks about what's the difference between critical and strategic thinking, thinking fast and slow, some tips for deeper concentration, 6 steps in the critical thinking process, some common pitfalls and traps to critical thinking that we'll discuss. And then, like everything, using both your left and right brain, a lot of incredible research is out there about our conscious mind, and even the way that we can think best, even the fact that our heart now, they've clearly identified, has neurons, so has its own brain. And we know that our stomach actually has an ability to think, to sort of those gut feelings that comes from, there's neurons as well. So using our entire being to think critically and to make good decisions is so important. So intuition, using it appropriately and developing that skill is a huge study now and can really help you. So, and then how curiosity can help. So when it comes to thinking, there's, we could go through the dry facts of what is a thought. You can think about this stuff. When you are thinking, do you ever pay attention to your thoughts? And the other thing is we've learned is our thoughts can be deceptive. We think about something based on our upbringing, our biases, and everything else. When you start to become more self-aware through practice, sometimes through meditation, through whatever it is, observing yourself, you can find your hidden biases. You can become more aware. You can expand your point of view, and you can actually think better, clearer, and you can improve cognitive outcomes because you aren't trapped in negative thinking cycles as well. So, what is critical thinking, and how can it help you? So, simply put, critical thinking is the act of deliberately analyzing information, and also being aware of your own biases so you can make better judgments and decisions. So it does include things like logic, reasoning, but it also includes creativity. Because when faced with a new situation, which we are even today, in our situation, the straight line is not the best one. And so you have to have a very creative approach to problem solving that isn't a straight line like that, because that definitely historically leads to disaster, because we need to be able to go, nope, that didn't work, this didn't work, okay, let's try this, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, creates exceptional outcomes. And that's really the best way to innovate as well. You start, fail, no, try that, this didn't work, and so on. So when it comes to thinking fast and slow, our fast thinking is unconscious. So sometimes you have an impulse, and often that is correct. There is a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. There's that instinctive and emotional center, which is highly attuned, which can be very accurate. But then there's the slower thinking, conscious, deliberate, and rational. So you want to balance these two types of thinking for optimization in your life, in your world, and in everything you do in work. So one of the ways we can optimize thinking is learning how to focus deeply. And unfortunately, in our world today, we are bombarded with distractions. It has impacted our ability to think critically. And it's not new news anymore that multitasking is disruptive and unhelpful for cognitive processes. Our brains work best when they have an opportunity to focus deeply. And this is individual, but from a period of 60 to 120 minutes on one task exclusively. So that means if you're working on a project, don't take a call, don't be also texting or doing emails. Certain things like music, particularly classical music, can augment cognitive facilities, but it's an augmentation. It's not pulling away or dividing your cognitive processes. So our ability to think deeply at a deeper level can really help us with our cognitive processes. So what are some of the things you do to improve concentration and focus? That's my first question for our audience today. And I love the quote by Einstein. He's one of my favorites. It's not that I'm so smart. It's just that I stay with problems longer. So, and a lot of us do give up too quickly, or we take the first suggestion, go, okay, that's fine, I'll go with it. That could be a disastrous suggestion, but we go with that one, unfortunately, because we're not thinking deeply, because we're thinking, oh, I'm too busy, I'll just take that. No, make sure you have enough on your plate that you can focus deeply on everything. When you have too many things on your plate that you can't focus deeply, you need to either delegate or get rid of something, because in your space, you're going to do a much better job when you can think deeply about everything. So here's an exercise. We won't go through that, but if you'd like to, you can list 3 day-to-day activities for which critical thinking can be helpful. That's something you can do on your own or with someone in your family or someone at work. So there are 6 steps I'm going to outline for critical thinking. So first of all, in any process, you need to acquire knowledge. And one of the ways to acquire knowledge is to ask people with conflicting views. We don't want to be stuck into a one-track cognitive bias. So whenever we're gathering information, you want different perspectives. You may believe one thing strongly, and that's exactly when you need to talk to someone who has a contrary point of view. That's a foundation of innovation and critical thinking, is having multiple points of view and challenging your own. You might be locked in a point of view that says, I am right. Well, how do you really know you're right? How many times have you been right in your life? Every time? Have you ever been wrong? So acquiring knowledge means stepping outside of your own personal, I'm not going to call it arrogance, your own personal assumptions, and looking at other people who also have strong points of view and going, and this is done in a non-aggressive way. So one of the ways we learn from each other is through healthy debate and dialogue. So that's how we acquire knowledge. And then really learning it. We're unfortunately in an era of, a lot of fake news and misinformation on all sides. And, and our mainstream media has not been known for their integrity and reporting, and it's increasing. So where do you find trustworthy sources? And how do you get a deeper level of comprehension on what you are supposed to do? What would be the best approach? And that's an important. So when you're interpreting data as well, to understand what is the best way to go forward, you want to get as many different sources as possible because you can see patterns that way. And myself, I love puzzles, always have been exceptionally good. So when you're looking at a puzzle and you're looking at information from many sources, you'll see patterns, and that'll give you clear information. Then you can form assumptions and draw conclusions and then take action. So education is not the learning of facts, but training the mind to think. Another great quote by Albert Einstein. Because if you just accept what information is presented to you without questioning it, you're not really training your mind. That's not learning at a deep level. That's not the critical thinking process. And that's how we've changed. Even just over 100 years ago, people didn't think we could fly. And all of a sudden, we expanded our horizon. People started questioning what they were told. Was it true? Was it accurate? And they were able to create a machine that allowed them to fly, which was an amazing accomplishment. And that's the way with everything. So first of all, when it comes to knowledge, you need to identify what needs to be solved, really understand the problem. And the questions to ask is really, what is the problem? Sometimes we don't even have that analyzed and properly. What is the real problem and how do we solve it? Next, it comes to comprehension. So really, the facts aligned with the situation are critical to know. Are the facts valid? Have they been questioned? Who's questioned them? What are their credentials? And what inferences can we make based on the cross-section of what we've seen that'll help us determine what is the proper action step? So those are really important points, whether you're in a technology company, financial services, healthcare, you name it. You really want to put a lot of time into the beginning part, identifying the true problem and really getting the inputs correct. So you can then build links between main problems to analyze the situation and analyze the cost benefit in any solution. Is there an opportunity? Would there be a possibility that the solution could cause more harm than the problem itself? And if that's the case, you would need to be very careful or test a potential solution on in a small way before testing out large scale. And that's what I think every single successful company does when there is risk involved, is you want a small scale test. You never go from a potential situation to a large scale implementation that is, disaster waiting to happen. So, and then you create priorities on how to address the situation. So this is just a diagram for a company that they used with multiple inputs to change a situation within their organization. So when it comes to forming assumptions, a lot of us don't realize that we have so many beliefs already. From the time we were born to the time we're an adult, we're bombarded with information that will form beliefs. Some of them could be based on facts that are accurate. Some of them could be based on information that is not accurate. So as an enlightened sort of person who's striving to be exceptional critical thinking, keep questioning your assumptions, keep challenging, and that's what all the great scientists do. And potentially, and certainly when it comes to organizational or governmental ideas, this is when you really need to question the assumptions and reason them through without unnecessary emotion. For example, when you are triggered by fear, if you're in a fearful state, your logical abilities will be hijacked. So where you might say, no, this doesn't seem rational, you might say, okay, if you're stuck in a fear mode. So what you want to make decisions when you're in a calm, relaxed point of view. And you can do that through deep breathing. One of the things we don't get enough of is oxygen. Just you getting outside, getting fresh air and sunshine, working out, just getting into a quiet mindset will help you get calm so you can make good decisions and reason through with logic. As I said, there's a difference between being overly emotional, where your kind of your logical faculties have been hijacked, and listening to your finely tuned emotions or your intuition. That's two very different things. So that's the next. The next step is drawing conclusions. And once the information is collected, links between problems built, the situation is analyzed, then you identify strong and weak points. Nothing is perfect. Challenges identified with some of these solutions, you can begin to draw conclusions and obtain the best course of action or the best courses of action. And remember, you can't solve problems using the same level of thinking that created them. So if you're stuck in always solving a problem the same way and you're always getting a negative result, that's when you have to, this is part of being creative as a human. You have to imagine new ways of solving problems and stepping outside of your preformed assumptions to create something better. So certainly when it comes to actioning, after you see how deeply you've thought about these problems, only after you've had this deep thinking and analysis, spent time with many different points of view, did the cost benefit analysis. If there are risk factors that are high, then you would only implement a solution on a very small scale as a test. That's the logical thing to do. And then you would move forward to solve it. If the first attempt did not work or gave you negative data, then you go back to the drawing board. This is how Apple became one of the top innovators in the world, through using a system where they were constantly questioning, trying things out on a teeny scale, testing it out, finding all the flaws, and then going back. And then you can fine tune with when, how often, where will they take place, logistics. So let's just talk about some of the pitfalls to critical thinking now. And using intuition. So intuition every person has it. It's how like every muscle, whether we're fine tuning it. And whether you're aware of your feelings, your emotions, those little premonitions. I mean, I've always had excellent intuition. I know and I sold some things just just before markets crashed, and made decisions listening to that gut feel. But we all have that, and there is something about that can be incredibly powerful when combined with critical thinking. And I've trained people for years. I've had presidents of companies, business executives say, I had a really bad feeling about this idea, and I just didn't know. And I said, pursue it, because that's a hunch that you need to follow. And if you're getting a bad feeling about something, don't ignore it, listen to it. And as I've said in the beginning, our heart has neurotransmitters. It's amazing. Our heart is actually a thinking device in our body. All research is showing that. So listen to your feelings, your emotions, and your mind in a calm, relaxed way, and you will get better decisions. So you can ask yourself, do your intuition serve you well right now? And how could you improve that? How can you listen to your intuition and combine it with your strong critical thinking in the future? So, one of the biases we have are frames. So if someone frames something in a negative point of view, like if you don't do this, then this will happen, then you're a lot more afraid, because we are more programmed to respond to negative inputs because of our survival instincts. Oh, but if you do a carrot response, well, if you do this, this will be the reward. You might just go, oh, whatever. So, that's one of the biases, paying attention to frames, loss and gain, or positive or negative frames. People use them to influence for a desired outcome. So the next thing, it comes to critical thinking fallacies. There's a planning fallacy that happens in many business organizations where they under anticipate how much time something will take. There's all sorts. I won't go into all these ones. You can find this on the course. But people use these things. They'll call, for example, an argument. They won't respond logically. They'll attack your character. They'll make great generalizations. So all of these slippery slope can go into detail in the actual training, black and white. So if you'd like to get it, we won't have time. Can you show the slide with the steps to critical thinking? I was taking notes. Yes, I could, if you don't mind, other people. I'll see if I can go back. No, it'll just take a second here. That's quite a ways away here. So I'll just give this one person. There you go. So if you could get that down, who asked, knowledge acquisition, comprehensive, interpret the data, form assumptions, draw conclusions, and action. If you want to email me as well at tishconlin.com, I can send that to you, whoever asked that. So let's move on now. And so there's a lot of, the thing in this point is, remember, we all have cognitive biases, and we get influence from childhood to believe certain things, and whole generations later, it's like, that was wrong. So constantly be questioning, is this the right approach? What the signs of a negative action are when a large scale implementation of anything is done without proper data, with high risk. You have to really question the effectiveness and the judgment of the individual or individuals who are implementing that. That's something we need to do. So there is something called critical thinking overload as well. And when our brains get overloaded, too much emotion can do that. Too many demands, that sort of thing. Decision fatigue. An example of that is you go to the grocery store now, and you have, I don't know, how many different types of even toothpaste do you have to choose from? It's just like, that's one of, thousands of decisions you need to make every day. And that's an example, creates decision fatigue. So you've got to simplify your life, and you got to focus your mind. Your mind is such an incredible tool. Like, all research now shows we only use 1% of our mind. And in fact, when they're studying now, and it's becoming more mainstream, people are realizing they have kinetic, psychic abilities. I've watched children read books when their eyes are blind. I mean, the incredible things the human mind can do, self-healing. I mean, it's unbelievable what your mind is capable of. And, we're only using a small amount. So how can we enhance our brain power? Well, your brain and your body are fed epigenetically with your thoughts. And, so you really pay attention to your thoughts and your emotions. If your emotion is telling you something negative, question it. It's giving you a message. could be something very important. But if your brain is constantly giving you negative messages, you need to question them like a good friend, going, is that true? Is it all doom and gloom? Is the sky really falling? Let's move this from a disaster to a problem to solve in anything you do. So, I'm 40 pounds overweight. For example, that a classic scenario, I'm 40 pounds overweight. I'll never lose weight. I just can't do it. I have no self-discipline. Well, your mind is being told it can, and your body is responding. So the messages we send us impact the reality that we create and our biases. So a great thing you can do is every night you go to bed, you no matter what happened, how many horrible things, you're grateful for X. You want to put that out. You really be grateful for your life, for anything that's good. Wake up the next day, wipe the slate clean. What is the problem I want to solve? What are the things that I'm, what are my own biases around the problem? What are my fears? Often we make a choice based on our fears that may not even be good for us. If you can eliminate the fear, if you can put the fear away and live in courage, what would then be your choice? Things like that affect your cognitive faculties. And then when you're being bombarded with negative messages from others or media, they are affecting your ability to think critically. You have to protect your mind against too much negativity so you can get the right decision. So a good quote here is, too often we enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of actual thought. So when we're constantly just accepting other people's opinions, that's when we stop to really think critically for ourselves and make our own good decisions. So I'm not going to go through the business exercise here, so we just don't have time. But one of the ways you can become better at critical thinking is just by developing curiosity in life. I mean, there's so many interesting things in the world once you start exploring them. I mean, the languages of the world, the cultures, the cuisine, the mysteries, even when you analyze what the pyramids, space and some of the things there. I mean, each country has amazing history. If you can just develop curiosity in life, each organization, what are their values? What's your value? I mean, what do you love to do? What really stirs your heart? What do you love to do? Do it as a hobby. One of the things that builds curiosity is following your passion. So when we are building our curiosity muscle, which helps our critical thinking, it's important to ask good questions. So say you have an opinion, strong opinion, which is okay, on a topic. You meet someone who has a strong opinion, opposing opinion. That's great. That's what we want in life. We want people with different opinions. Ask them questions beyond yes and no. Come into it with a mindset of, I might not be right, so I'm going to listen to this other person instead of I'm right. I'm just going to put up with what they say. What they say won't influence you at all if you've already made up your mind. So come with an open mind, be curious. Ask really strong questions. Don't make blanket judgments. And you would be surprised what you would learn. That's how we can impact each other in a positive way. So there's different types of questions to ask. So remember, curiosity is the compass that leads us to our passions. Follow it and you won't be disappointed. So the future belongs to the curious. That's how you can imagine new outcomes and be curious. So let's not squash curiosity. Let's not squash diverse opinions. Let's hug and accept and honor someone who has a different opinion because they have the courage to say it. And let's stand strong. If we have an opinion, that's fine too. And I think too many families have been locked into conflict because they have different point of view. That's just classically wrong. I mean, love is the foundation for families. Support and curiosity within organizations, diversity, as we talk about, that means diverse opinions too. So if your family member doesn't agree with you, whether it's intergenerational, we deal with a lot of that, then that's fine. Don't stop. Don't say you're not going to speak to them. Don't unfriend them. And make sure you take time to talk about the many things you do agree on. And if you can agree to disagree on a heated topic, that's fine. Leave it off the table. But never let a relationship be impacted because you have a different point of view. That's so critical. So creating a culture of critical thinking in your organization is absolutely essential for success and innovation. When I start some of my talks, the stat you may be familiar with is worldwide engagement is unbelievably low. People talk, different groups, anywhere from 15 to 18% to 30%, which even if you're at the top end of that, that's still a huge amount of the workforce that does not feel fulfilled or engaged. That's a huge opportunity to do better. One of the ways that we can do better at work is by creating this culture of critical thinking. Every human being needs autonomy in their work, so they need meaningful work that they're empowered to do themselves. They need competence, so they need the skills to do the work. They need to be properly trained, and they need to have support and relationships. We all are built based on relationships, so positive relationship with coworker. That's an important piece that we haven't had in over a year with all of these severe policies going along. And something we need to get back to is in-person communication, meeting, that really fuels innovation. There's an energetic connection with people when you are together physically. So start to create a culture of curiosity in your organization. Ask questions, look at people, pay attention. That alone, if you can give someone your attention, that is going to be unbelievably helpful. And having people feel heard is one of the most amazing things. So giving time and attention, curiosity, and focus on learning. So if you have one point of view and you're stuck on it, you're really fixed in time, you're fixed in the past. So keep learning about all different topics. And when it comes to thinking, start with why. Why do we want to solve this problem to begin with? And why are we using this approach? Why is it creating a backlash? Why are we doing these things? So whatever it is, start with why and share ideas to find ways to innovate more successfully. Encourage different points of view. One of the things that I will do in meetings is say, I would love to hear a different point of view, because that people are nervous about sharing something different. When one person speaks up, it may not be the best idea. But a lot of people lack the courage to say, I think differently. If you encourage different points of view, you are going to have much higher levels of innovation, and believe it or not, number two, engagement. Because once people can say what they really truly believe to be true and have that accepted without judgment, even if it turns out to be a wrong idea, you're all of a sudden creating an amazing workforce. And that's what we need in the world today more and more. And practice, I'm not going to have time to go through the difference between inductive and deductive reasoning, but encourage critical thinking in all departments. So takeaways for today is, critical thinking is a manual thinking process that systematically works to achieve the best outcomes to solve problems. Thinking beneath the surface requires clarity, multiple conclusions, not just one, and decisions that could be chucked, to use a banal word, if you're finding that they're not leading to the right outcomes, or new information has surfaced, or they're no longer required. So those are the 6 steps that the individual asks for. And one of the most important things to keep in mind is that we all have biases deeply programmed, some of them conscious, some of them subconscious. And when you get quiet in your mind, you can start questioning your own biases and your own fears that can be impacting your ability to make a good decision for yourself and others. So, and finally, curiosity is very helpful. So there are some great books on this topic. And certainly if you have any questions, you can contact me at Tish at tishconlin.com.
Thanks, Tish. That was terrific. Once again, and thanks for the series that you've given us. It's been terrific. Appreciate everyone turning out. And hope to see you next webinar. Okay. Thank you.
Wonderful. Have a great week, everyone. All the best.